Hi, I'm Kevin Judah, along with Vashti Bernard, Chris Jerry, and Coach Kevin Jackson, and welcome to this week's edition of the Nation's Capital Sports Show, where it's most definitely on. Let's get started talking about what we enjoy talking about the most, gentlemen, and that is sports in the DMV. First off, congratulations to you, Coach Kevin Jackson, for winning the WCAC title. DeMatha won it over St. John, 31-10.
Yeah, we won the game last Saturday night. It was an exciting game. I'd like to take my cap off to the St. John's team, and also to Coach Elijah Brooks, who was the WCAC Coach of the Year, and bringing the WCAC championship back to Madison Street.
Now, you're the running back coach, and it must have been a good feeling for you, actually, the defensive back coach.
Yeah.
It must have been a good feeling for you to win your first championship.
Yes, it was an awesome feeling. We had a great performance. We held the St. John's offense to under 200 yards of total offense, and I believe they completed between 5 and 7 passes. So our defense played outstanding that day. They stuck to our game plan, and the kids executed. And that's all you can ask as a coach.
One heck of a game, Afshin.
Yeah, Coach, congratulations once again. And it was really, I know it's been tough. How did you guys go through going on the last couple of years with good counsel, really dominating the WCAC championship-wise? And what did you do to talk to your team? How did you guys roll through with it this year, especially when you had to play good counsel, though they were hurt when they played you?
Well, our team, going back to 3 years when we first came in as a staff, the team that we have today, they were mostly sophomores. So each year we just preached to them the importance of working hard, self-determination, and doing everything you can in the off season to prepare you for the regular season and into the playoffs. And as they got older and matured, they came together as a senior class and they brought the championship back.
A lot of confidence in that team this year. We saw a couple games. Yeah.
Chris.
Yeah, well, congratulations. I add mine in. I wish, to be honest with you, good counsel had been really healthy because I wanted to see both of your two teams play. But glad to see the DeMathas back on the winning track because good counsel had you guys and owned the WCAC for several years there.
Good Counsel is an outstanding program. Coach Bob Malloy does an outstanding job. We faced them in the semifinals of the WCAC playoffs, and they gave us everything that we knew they were going to give us and even more. That game went into overtime, and we won the game on a defensive stop at the 3-yard line.
Wow.
Coach Malloy made the decision that there wasn't going to be a second overtime, and we're thankful that he made that decision.
And congratulations again. It was a great season, and I know that you guys will be looking forward to next year doing basically the same thing you did this year.
Yes, we're trying to get back on the DeMatha winning ways.
So, do you take a break from now, between now, as far as coaching is concerned?
Well, with football, the kids, we all have a break. We're going to have our banquet coming up, and then when we come back for the new year, we'll have our lift-a-thon that we usually do to set the baseline. It's our sports performance testing to set the baseline for our training throughout the spring. And we'll start having colleges come in probably around February to watch the students train because that's where most of their scholarships take place. From seeing their work ethic in the gym and how they move and try to better themselves in the off season.
Now, when you look at your team in a whole, what players stood out to you?
Well, the player that stood out the most to me this season, I think that was really the catalyst for our defense, was our defensive tackle or nose tackle, Devontae Fox. This young man, he took it upon himself to be a beast in the middle, to double gap both A gaps, and all season long he didn't allow you to go and run into A gaps. And he emerged in the championship game. I think he had 1 or 2 sacks in the championship game, and that's hard to do from a nose tackle position in the 3-4 defense that we run.
And I know that must makes you feel good because he's part of the defense, and I know that's a good feeling. So
Right.
You keep on doing the good work. Overall, in the WCAC, what team gave you the most and stiffest competition, or a run for your money?
I would have to say Good Counsel. Good Counsel. The playoff game was definitely a challenging game. In the first regular season game, we were winning 7-0 going into with probably about 5 minutes left in the third quarter, and we made an interception that turned the game to 14-0. But if they score on that play, we're starting the fourth quarter with the game 7-7. So Good Counsel, even though they had some players injured in that first game, they still were a formidable adversary, and I can't wait to play them next year.
Congratulations, job well done. So let's move over and talk about Virginia football, and the man with all the information is Afshin Bernard. We know that Yorktown is out. And you mentioned something about Falls Church as a team to be reckoned with.
Right, they're out too now. There are no
Yeah.
more teams in the
Oh.
National District, but Yorktown from the 6A, they lost to Lake Braddock 40-7, I believe it was. And then, of course, Centerville, another top team in the Northern Virginia region, they also won. So now Lake Braddock will play Westfield, Centerville will play Stonewall Jackson in the semis. But Yorktown had a good season. MJ Stewart wasn't really healthy the last couple of weeks. Not that that would have made a difference. I think it would have been probably a little bit closer had he been able to play. He did play against Lake Braddock, but he only caught a few passes. He didn't actually run the ball at all. So it was a tough season for Yorktown, especially the last 2 or 3 games. But we'll see.
Yeah, I'm kind of looking forward. We were talking just a little earlier. I'm going to go out and watch some of the 6A games because the Western Fairfax schools, when you're talking about Westfield, Centerfield, Chantilly was a little down this year. They always play good. And it looks like it could possibly be Centerville and Westfield meeting again. But Lake Braddock is undefeated. They've had a good year, so that's going to be tough. And Stonewall being from Manassas, they're the one team outside. You know, we talked earlier about the reclassification. Yeah. So most of your 6A North schools are the schools that are in the old northern region, Fairfax, Arlington, and Alexandria.
Yeah, Lake Braddock, if they're going to be in it, Chris, it's going to be because of their quarterback, Caleb Henderson, who's one of the better quarterbacks in the DMV. But they are really a good team, Centerville. So I don't know. Don't you think they're the cream of the crop, though, Centerville?
I would say based on their record, yeah. But I'll tell you something, because of the new classification, the thing is Lake Braddock was undefeated, but Lake Braddock did not get as many power points being in the division they were in. So because of that, that's ended up costing them the #1 seed.
All right, let's get the coach in on this.
I think Lake Braddock, to me, would probably be the favorite coming out of the 6A in Virginia. I think that because of the quarterback, Caleb Henderson. This young man is outstanding. He has a tremendous football IQ. He understands how to read defenses, and he can make all the throws. I think he has the NFL's arm that's going to be developed in college,
Wow.
And he can definitely make all the throws. And he gets the ball to his playmakers, and he always puts his team in the best position to score points. And they've been averaging, I think, over 40 points a game.
Yeah, they've done really well. They've scored a lot of points. I'm not sure if it's 40. They're up in the 30s per game, but he's going to North Carolina. He's a recruit, just like MJ Stewart, going to North Carolina. So Carolina must be smiling right now.
Yeah, their future
right.
looks bright.
All right, let's move on over and talk about DC football. DCIAA, Stars and Stripes division. Let's start with the Stars division. H.D. Woodson versus Wilson,
I think it's
Alma.
Wilson.
Yeah,
you
baby. In the Turkey Bowl, then, of course, we have Phelps versus McKinley in the Gravy Bowl.
Gravy
Man,
Bowl.
this is making me hungry. I haven't had a lick to eat. Gravy, turkey, Chris.
Yeah, this is the first year that DC is doing this. So as you talked about, the first game that you mentioned, your alma mater, Wilson, and they'll be playing H.D. Woodson, and that's going to be in the Turkey Bowl. That's the traditional game played on Thanksgiving Day between what is in the Stars division. That's kind of like the top flight, the best of the 6 playing football schools, public high schools. And then they had something just recently called the Gravy Bowl. This is something brand new. It's inaugural. This is the other 6 schools whose programs are not quite up there, but they wanted them to have a chance for the championship game. And in the inaugural game, McKinley Tech ended up defeating Phelps 34-0.
That's a good start. Wilson 9-3 finished this season. Congratulations goes out to Coach Mark Wilson, also from the class of 1982. Man,
That's
you're talking
right.
about good talent. I know you're still a young man, but that's old farts here. Got a role in the past. But speaking of the present, Wilson has a team to reckon with, Ashing.
They certainly do. They really have had a great year. And I want to say for Wilson, not because we were alums of them, but I think they deserve to get back there after what happened to the Wilson Tigers last year, and then they all of a sudden this ineligible player when they made it to the championship last year and they couldn't play it. So good for them to make it. And of course McKinley, they earned their stripes, right, in the Gravy Bowl.
That's right.
And now they have a chance to move on up to the Stars division next year because they won this year.
All right, we'll see how it goes for that. Obviously, by the time that this show's air, we will not know the results of those games. However, we're going to end this segment on this note. Outstanding thoughts for you guys in terms of D.C. and Virginia area and Maryland football. First, we'll start with you, Afshin.
Oh, it's always a great year. I love high school football. I think there's nothing better when you watch these kids go out and just put put their all on the field. I know you can attest to this, Coach, but just to watch these 16, 17, 18-year-old kids go out there and give their best, and for the sheer enjoyment of it, Kevin, nothing like it in all of sports to me.
Chris.
Yeah, I think I just like to say it was kind of interesting with the new configuration in Virginia, but since the coach is here, I know he didn't schedule it, but the thing that DeMatha did that I really liked as a high school football fan that focuses on Virginia is DeMatha went out right at the very beginning and they took on the best team in Virginia in Phoebus, and they went down to Virginia Beach on their home area and they beat them. And that told me right there DeMatha was going to be good, and turned out that was right on point.
All right. Sounds like a challenge to me. We'll get your thoughts on that. Coach, your thoughts on that, and basically just end with telling us about your thoughts on D.C. area, Virginia, and Maryland high school football on the whole.
Well, first speaking about the Phoebus game, I think that going out and playing Phoebus, I think that was at the tone for our season. We were installing a new defense, and we saw that Phoebus was a very strong running team, and that we would have to get better at stopping the run, playing against Good Counsel, St. John's, and Gonzaga. So Phoebus allowed us to identify our area of weakness and to turn into a strength by the end of the season. But I was totally happy with how the high school football season went. I hope that Wilson gets to play Friendship Collegiate in the DC State Championship.
All right, thank you very much, Coach. We want to remind everyone that you're watching the Nation's Capital Sports Show on Fios 38 and Comcast 69 via Arlington Independent Media. I'm Kevin Jeter, along with Chris Cherry, Afshin Banob, and Coach Kevin Jackson, the high-flying DeMatha Stags, the defensive back coach. And we're talking all thing football and sports here. Let's go over to the Washington Redskins, 3-7. San Francisco 49ers roll into town. What can you say about them? And first we'll start with Chris.
Well, can't say much about them. There's more drama than anything around them, you know, when you're talking about what's going on with some of the things about the quarterback, Robert Griffin, and what have you. So we'll see. I think that the game against the 49ers will determine whether they'll still have a shot, because there's a lot of teams, there's a lot of mediocrity in NFL this year. But if they lose, I think it's all done. They start for next year.
And, of course, Chris is referring to a discussion that happened in the media between, well, actually not necessarily between Santana Moss and Robert Griffin Jr., Robert Griffin III. It actually happened when Santana Moss had his separate press conference. He said something to the effect that, I'm paraphrasing this here, he said something to the effect that perhaps the defense and the throwing, actually the offense and the throwing and the placement of the ball is not where it's supposed to be. Now, several days later, Robert Griffin III had his press conference and said, well, you know, if the receivers were where they needed to be, then we wouldn't have this problem. Obviously, conversations happen like this when you're losing. We would not be hearing this if the Redskins were winning. Afshin.
No, of course not. You wouldn't hear about this. And actually, if they were winning, the receivers would be where they're supposed to be. Robert Griffin III would be throwing the ball where he's supposed to throw it.
That's right.
So, you know, but it's all, you know, it's all out in the media. And one thing, you know, most coaches don't want is the trash exposed to the rest of the world. So, but they apparently worked it out behind the scenes, as it should be. You know, it's not for the media. It's not for the people to know about, really. It's for them to figure it out and get on the football field and play some ball.
And that's how families resolve things in-house. Coach.
Right.
Well, this season has definitely got away from Mike Shanahan and Kyle Shanahan and Jim Haslett. I think at this point, at this point, we just need to continue to go out there and compete. Well, I say we, 'cause I'm a Redskins fan, but they definitely need to go out there and compete and just try to salvage a 8-8 season or maybe a 9-9 season, but try to have a winning or 500 season. With the trade for RG3, there isn't a first-round draft pick to look for, so you're really just gonna have to do it in free agency over the summer, and you're gonna get some money back because the cap issue should be resolved this summer.
That's right.
So we should get some money to be able to be a player on the market.
Afshin, you mentioned that. That was one of the major things that we continue to talk about in terms of the Washington Redskins. Not to use that as an excuse, but it could have helped them out on defense.
Sure, they took a $36 million hit, $18 million in 2012, $18 million this year for the 2013 season, and that would have definitely helped them out on defense. There's some players out there that they would have been able to get, not only via draft, but free agency. But I'll tell you one thing, the St. Louis Rams are the team that's hoping that the Washington Redskins continue to lose and lose and lose, because they have the first pick this year. They have Washington's first pick, and the more the Skins lose, the higher that pick goes for St. Louis.
That's right. When you look at the Washington Redskins, Chris, as a team and on a whole for this particular season, Are they the team that we expected them to be, or that fans expected them to be, or is this the reality sinking in? They are this team that is susceptible to losing.
Well, they're the team I expected them to be.
I wonder why.
Well, you know, football is such a game that only a few plays every game can make the difference between you being 7-3 or 3-7. And so they had this struggle last year. As you remember, they were 3-6, and then they got hot down the stretch and they won their last 6 games to end up 10-6 and win the division. And I think because of that, people expected that they would come and win the division again this year, and it hasn't quite happened that way. So, they're what I expected them to be, but the National Football League parity, that's what it's all about, and that's where it goes.
And it's precarious, as Chris alluded to, in terms of the NFL this year. You have a lot of teams that are not doing that good, and you have only a few teams that are at the echelon in terms of being at the top. We look at Denver, and we look at not necessarily St. Louis, but we look at the Saints, and we look at Kansas City.
Yeah, Chris said it. That one word, parity. That's what the NFL has always wanted. And when I say they've always wanted it, I could go back to Pete Rozelle, one of the older commissioners a long time ago. He wanted parity, and that's what he got. If Pete Rozelle had his way today, if he were alive, he'd want every team to be 8-8 and make the playoffs. But that's what it is. There's always going to be just 2 or 3 teams that are at the top, and then the rest have to fight their way through it.
Well, be careful of what you ask for, Coach.
Well, yeah, there's definitely a lot of parity in the league, and you're seeing teams like Kansas City. Kansas City had a losing record last year, and now they've only lost 1 game this season, and that is definitely due to their defense and how they've been playing. But it's also, I think, a lot has to be can go to Jamal Charles and the Kansas City offense, and just having ball control. If you're a football team and you control the ball and you can turn people over on downs on defense, you're gonna have a winning record. So Kansas City, I think they're gonna make the playoffs. And I don't see them going far in the playoffs just because I don't think the offense is that powerful, and you have to score points in the playoff. Ball control is not going to win in the playoffs.
That's very true. Let's talk in terms of the Washington Redskins. They obviously are a team in parity, or pearl, I should say, and they're not doing as good. Where do they go from here? And first, we'll start with you, FG.
Well, they have to go back to basics, I think. One thing they got to do as a football team, and they have to draft wisely. They have to go into the free agent market and find some players that will fill needs. Not the best player overall, not the most talented athlete, but a player that actually will fill a need and come in and work hard on this football team. That's what they really have to do, and that's where they should start.
Chris, same question.
I'm with Afshin, but one of the major changes I would make is Robert Griffin is going to be your quarterback. I like to see him show some leadership. Just what you guys mentioned a little earlier, one thing that I think he needs to do is, if something is his fault, and even if it's not his fault, just take responsibility and say, that's on me.
Yeah,
because that can really solidify the locker room and gets everybody in hand. So hopefully he's learned some leadership skills out of this season to take the next year.
It's called maturity and humility. And speaking to so many former NFL players, they have said and told me that this game will change you on a heartbeat, Coach.
I think it hurts me to say this, but I think the Redskins' biggest problem is personnel and scheme, and that goes to coaching and general managing. I think that they're running a 3-4 defense, and I don't think they have a personnel to run a 3-4 defense. So I think they should probably look at switching back to a 4-3 defense. Offensively, you don't have the personnel to be a drop-back passing team. So I think Alfred Morris, he gets you 3 to 4 yards a clip every time he touches the ball. Then I think they should go back to 3, 3, 3, and run it again on 4th down, and you get a first down with 3 more. So I really think we need to lean on our what's working and change what's not working, because they're practicing insanity right now.
Who knows, with this bad weather that's coming in, supposedly to the Washington, D.C. area, now that our friends in the Midwest have experienced snow and sleet already, perhaps the weather will help the Washington Redskins against those San Francisco 49ers. I doubt that, but anything is possible. Hope springs eternal. We're going to let Coach have the last word on that. Actually, one question before you leave here, and we want to thank you, of course, for joining us for this particular segment, and as well as for the high school segment. Your dreams and aspirations, do you ever envision yourself as being a head coach in terms of high school?
No, sir. I do not ever envision myself being a head coach.
You're not saying that because you know you're going to have your head coach watching this, right?
No, I'm not saying that. Because I'm saying that because I'm thinking of him as I answer this question, because I see the time he puts in, that Coach Elijah Brook puts in, the time he's away from his family. He has a young daughter that he's raising, and I know it's stressful on him, and I just couldn't imagine putting myself in that same predicament. So I'm grateful to be a position coach on the staff, and I think that's the highest level I'm gonna go for.
All right. Well, thanks so much, Coach Kevin Jackson.
Thank you.
Defensive
Thank you
back
for having
coach
me
of the
again.
Mathis
Thank you, Kev.
Stags. Glad to have
Appreciate
you,
it.
man.
All right,
And
Coach.
you're
Appreciate
welcome
it.
to
All
be
right.
on the show anytime that you want. I'm Kevin Jeter along with Chris Jerry, Coach Kevin Jackson. We thank you once again. Afshin Banab. This is the Nation's Capital Sports Show, where it's most definitely on. Also, you can check out our website, brand new, at tncss.net. We'll be right back after this, talking Maryland football and the UVA team football, as well as Washington Wizards. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Nation's Capital Sports Show, where it's most definitely on. I'm Kevin Jeter, hanging out with Chris Jerry and Afshin Banab. Gentlemen, let's continue to talk about what we enjoy talking about the best and the most, and that is sports. But before we get to that, you can catch us on social media. Twitter us at TNCS Sports at twitter.com. How about those Terrapins, University of Maryland? They are bowl eligible. Unfortunately, their last game in the ACC, they did not win that, losing against Boston College 29-26 in the heartbreaker. Afshin.
Yeah, they lost a heartbreaker. That was a wild finish the way they lost that game. But they did get 6, so I guess you could say they did end the season, or at least their home season, on a positive note. They're not looking too well as far as their ACC record, though, Kevin. So they haven't done well in the conference.
Afshin.
Well, thanks to Virginia Tech, that's Maryland's 2 wins in conference, so that's what made them bowl eligible. But, man, what a freaky way for them to lose that game, because Boston College goes up, and then they get a blocked extra point, and it's like all the players forget that you can run back a blocked extra point. Maryland does so to make it 26-26. Then they come down, they kick a field goal, but just after Randy Edsall calls a timeout, they miss it, and so the kicker gets another kick, and he makes it, and Boston College spoils Maryland's last ever ACC home game.
All right, so Maryland goes where in terms of the playoffs?
Well, if they win, they have how many games left?
They have
2?
one. They play NC
one
State.
game left, but they'll probably end up going to the Military Bowl. But had they won this game and then maybe gotten to 8 wins over the season, they would have at least had a choice of bowls to go to. But most likely it'll be the Military Bowl.
Yeah, it'll be the Military Bowl because, first of all, Maryland doesn't travel well.
No.
They don't, which means they don't sell a lot of tickets. So it makes sense that they can go right up the street to Annapolis and maybe sell 8,000 to 10,000 tickets, and that's where they'll play.
And next year, when they're in the Big Ten, they won't be needing to travel anyway.
That's right.
That's right.
Well, the Big Ten is going to be a different story altogether, gentlemen.
Yeah.
We don't need to talk about that one, at least not yet. But let's continue to talk about football in terms of the University of Virginia. Boy, what a trying year for Coach London and the rest of the team. I got to put my condolences out and heart out to the young men for that team, because on any given Saturday, you know that those young men are laying it on the line. And in college football, it all goes back to the coach, Chris.
This is just a troubling year for University of Virginia football. As you guys know, this is my 26th year having 2 season tickets, and I've just seen the seats around me. I'm in section 130, and we have lost so many fans. And really, it's been this last decade, first under Al Groh, and Mike London's teams have not done anything. Has lost a lot of the luster, and they've got a young team, but it's just disappointing. And a lot of people want London out. They figure he's been there 4 years. They've gone 4-8, 8-4, 4-8, and staring 2-10 in the face if they lose to Virginia Tech. A lot of people want him out, but the athletic director, Craig Littlepage, has said he's going to bring him back. So to me, this is like the nuclear option. London is really, defiant, like, I'm coming back, and Littlepage is saying, so fine. If you guys, I'm saying this as a fan now, if you guys can't get better than 7-5, then as a package deal, both of you, London and Littlepage, out the door, see you.
Now, we talk in terms of you listen to a lot of the football and go to the games, obviously, as a fan, and also as an analyst. We look in terms of the UVA in terms of their structure, in terms of the way that they're made up. And during one of Coach London's radio shows you were listening to, and they introduced them, and usually you said that there's wide applause, but you actually said you could hear a pin drop.
Well, what happened, Kevin, they have on Monday nights, they have the Virginia Coaches Show, and Mike London usually comes on with Dave Kane and, at one of the local restaurants in Charlottesville. And I just thought it was interesting after the latest debacle of loss that when he was there, usually you hear, and here we have the head coach of the University of Virginia, Mike London, yeah. Well, this time it was silent. And it was so eerie. And after 30 minutes, they started talking about women's soccer, man. They weren't even talking about football anymore.
I don't mean to laugh, but you gotta do that, man.
Yeah.
Afshin.
Well, no, Chris is right. There's other sports at UVA which are more popular than football right now,
well,
but and doing better than Mike London and the Cavaliers. But one thing I did hear, Chris, is that some of the top recruits that are coming next year, they actually have phoned Little Page and said that if London does not come back, we will not go to Virginia. Is that true?
Yeah, well, basically, Little Page, their parents have asked, and Little Page has said they're coming back. So it's important that Virginia win their bowl game this week, and that bowl game is against Virginia Tech, and that's
right.
and that's important because if Duke should somehow slip up to North Carolina, Virginia Tech will be playing Virginia for the ACC Coastal Division Championship. So. This is a big game for Virginia. They can absolutely ruin Virginia Tech's record, and they haven't beaten Virginia Tech, I think, about 8 straight times now. So,
all right,
see.
So let's end this segment on this note. Got a question for you guys. What is ailing UVA? What is one potential thing in less than 10 seconds, if you could be judicious? Afshin.
They don't have a good scheme on offense.
Chris.
Youth and inconsistent quarterback play with some of the coaching too.
Wow, an unfortunate thing because I, as much as I kid Chris about UVA, I actually attended a few games with you. I actually like UVA, so we hope that they do good. As to whether or not Mike London is the answer, only time will tell. All right, so let's talk about the Washington Wizards professionally basketball NBA. They are 5-8, doing slightly better than they have been in previous years. Perhaps that talk that Nene had may have paid off. Afshin.
I think it did a little bit, but let's remember some of the teams that they have beaten recently are not the cream of the crop of the NBA. But I will say this for the Washington Wizards. They are more exciting now than they have been in a while, especially over the last couple of years. So I do like watching John Wall play. He is such a fast guy, and it's fun to watch him play. At least I can say that about the Wizards right now, and they're at least competitive.
That's right. Chris, you've often said that usually by January in the NBA, you'll have an actually kind of barometer as to where NBA teams stand in terms of their consistency, where they're going to be at ultimately in the season. However, with the Wizards, you've always said we would have that actually opportunity to get a feeler for them by December. So it's imperative that they do good for this month and as well as December.
Well, a lot of people think of the NBA as starting on Christmas Day because there's so many games. I say if the Wizards are within 2 or 3 games of 500 come Christmas Day, then maybe they've got a shot at the playoffs. But if they're not, I think we're going to see a whole different regime next year because I think the coach and general manager will both be gone.
Thank you, Afshin. Thank you, Chris. I know what we're going to do. We're about to go Ghost, but before we do that, you can check out our email address. Email us, drop us a line at info@tncss.net. Also, visit our brand new webpage at tncss.net. Boy, I'm having a hard time talking tongue-tied. So, Afshin, we have a lot of folks that are behind the scenes that make us look and sound good, and they are.
Devin Gallagher, Kevin Sampson, Ken Briley, Rhonda Mendoza, Craig Syfax, Kimberly Phillip, Misty Sweet, and a whole lot of other people, but we appreciate it.
And happy birthday to you, my man.
Thank
you
you.
celebrated
Thank
a
you.
birthday
That's
a couple
right,
of
I
days
did.
ago.
I did.
I would have brought a cake, but kind of like ate that before I got in.
And happy
Well, not the
Thanksgiving
whole
to you
cake.
guys.
Oh, thank you, man.
Yeah.
And happy Thanksgiving out there to everyone out there. On behalf of our entire AIM crew, I'm Kevin Jeter, along with Afshin Banab and Chris Jerry. And also we want to thank our special guest, Coach Kevin Jackson of the DeMatha Stags, for stopping by. May everyone have a safe and pleasant holiday. Be good to one another and share in the grace and the good givings of Thanksgiving. May you have a safe holiday and happy sporting. I'm Kevin Jeter. Ashley Bernard, Chris Jury. This is the Nation's Capital Sports Show, where it's most definitely on. Take care.